And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host and author, Sara DiVello, and I am so excited to welcome back real-life lawyer turned author Amy Impellizzeri, here to give us the inside scoop on book 3 in the River's Edge Law Club series, Easy Street. Amy, welcome back to Mystery and Thriller Mavens. Tell us about this book.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sarah. Oh, I'm so excited about this book. It's been a long time coming. It is in this story, third book of the River's Edge Law Club series, again taking place in River's Edge and centered around the law club, which is the big hub of corruption, backdoor dealings, and all sorts of things in the town, fictional town, of course. But in this book, 6 lawyers, 3 couples get together to buy a building on the cheap, an old industrial warehouse that they're going to convert into high-end condos. And they are convinced that they were able to sort of negotiate this incredible price for this building. But as they get into the building and they start uncovering all sorts of things, pollutants, environmental hazards, but secrets of the building that are probably more than they bargained for.
Well, 6 lawyers, 3 couples, 1 quick flip in the midst. What could go wrong? Well, if you're in an Amy Impellizzeri book, the answer is plenty. And we are going to get into every delicious detail that goes far beyond the mold and the cracked foundations. So if you've been here before with us, you know the drill. And if you're new, welcome, mystery and thriller loving friends. Here's the drill. Every Monday, for hashtag Mystery Monday, I give you my handpicked featured authors and you get to ask them anything. So ask Amy about this plot, about this series, about her writing practice, because this is book 3 in the River's Edge series, but book 9 all overall for Amy Impellizzeri. Ask her anything that you want about any of these things, and I will get those questions right over to her. Renee is joining us from Facebook saying, hi, Sarah and Amy from Southeast Florida. Hi, Renee. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Renee.
Now, hi. Okay, now, Amy, I want to kick off because let's talk about what really matters here, and that is that there's a character named Sara with no H. Now, clearly, she is my favorite character, and let's talk about her first. Talk about the inspiration for this mysterious Sara no H.
Yeah, Sarah, that's so fabulous that you picked up on that. Thank you. So yeah, she is. So as I mentioned, there are six attorneys that originally buy the building, 3 couples, but they're having trouble closing on the deal, and they need to bring someone else into the deal. And at the last minute, Archie, who's one of the 6 lawyers, he's the one who this was his brainchild, this whole building. He's the one that introduces the building to his friends. He's the one that sort of is really pushing for this deal. He comes up with a new buyer, a 7th person to join Sara. But the interesting thing is that Sara does not come to the closing. Archie takes care of all the paperwork. Archie's the only one that meets with Sara. Archie's the only one that really communicates with Sara. She's on all the group chats, all the group threads about the building, and even after they move into the building. But other than a few sort of maybe views of her from the street below in the windows, nobody really gets to talk to Sara, and she becomes a very mysterious character as the story unfolds.
Well, that's a Sara for you. I mean, we are women of mystery. And the book actually opens with Sarah's grandmother, Agnes,
yes,
who has a special tie to this building and indeed a secret passageway. Now, what is one of my top 3 favorite things, secret passageways, from an old mysterious sanitarium over to the building that the 6 friends and 3 couples buy. Let's talk about Agnes and that character.
Yeah. So Agnes is one of my favorite characters, and she greets us in the beginning of the book. It's a flashback to the past, decades earlier, and Agnes owned the building, and it has a really difficult history for her. Agnes had been a patient with postpartum depression at the sanitarium, basically with a husband who kind of locked her up and sold her to the hospital for experimental surgery, experimental procedures, and she was being wheeled back and forth in this underground passageway to the building at Easy Street. Back then it was called East Street. But Agnes takes matters into her own hands and she acquires the building, and she's not sure whether she should destroy it or do something meaningful with it. And we don't really know in the beginning
Mm.
what Agnes ends up doing. But she is definitely a haunting figure in the story. And you're right, she's Sarah's grandmother, and we learn that Sarah is really obsessed with Agnes, her history, what happened, because Agnes was on trial decades earlier for the murder of her husband, but she was acquitted and his body was never found. And so everyone's sort of really kind of those secrets from the past are buried, but Sarah is pretty intent on digging them back up again.
Well, that's a Sarah for you. We're intent on digging up old secrets. And as someone who loves old secrets and who is very close with her beloved grandmother, I was vibing with the Sarah character. Now, Amy, there's another character, Ava, and Ava leaves the law firm to become a writer. Now, interestingly, your name is Amy, also 3 letters, starts with an A, who used to be a lawyer that became a writer. I mean, it just like gets curiouser and curiouser. Are you Ava? Did you base Ava on yourself? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this character of Ava.
So I definitely, Ava's not autobiographical, but there's so much I loved writing about her. And Ava's decision, not unlike mine, to leave the law was not necessarily to write a book. It was really she just really wanted to get out of the law. She really felt like she was kind of on a hamster wheel. She is dating a male partner, Rowan Knight, who they started out at the firm together, and then he just jetted ahead of her, made partner, and his whole roster of clients is basically wealthy older women who hire him to deal with their late husband's estate plans and money issues. And he's making a fortune without working too hard. Ava's running in circles. She's really frustrated. So she decides to leave the law, something she'd always wanted to do, but leave it behind and try her hand at writing, yes, a novel. So there's obviously a lot that was very fun about writing Ava, but she's definitely not an autobiographical character.
Interesting. Now we were talking a moment ago about Agnes, Sarah, my favorite character's grandmother, who was charged with the murder of her husband, the husband that committed her to the sanitarium for postpartum. Renee wants to know what the heck could have happened to his body, LOL.
Yeah, it is definitely a mystery in the book. And I will tell you, it is not an unsolved mystery by the end of the book, but it's definitely a mystery that runs through the book. What happened to him and who happened to him?
Who indeed has happened to him?
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, Renee. Amy, let's dive into your creative process. So as a lawyer turned writer, are you at your desk working lawyer hours, just pounding the coffee and wearing a pencil skirt and high heels and carrying a leather briefcase, or are you, now that you are out of that world, having a more relaxed creative process?
Yeah, my creative process has gotten much more organized as I've been writing, and certainly for this series, I spend a lot more time plotting than for any novels prior to writing this series. So I do a storyboard. I spend a lot of time outlining first, and really I create like an old-fashioned storyboard with the post-it notes and the chapters, and I really do all of that. But I'm not a slave to it. I do really enjoy the process of writing. So I really do enjoy the characters unfolding and the characters sort of revealing themselves to me. I really do. the genesis for this story came from a case I worked on back in the day. Yeah,
What?
there was a building.
Really?
And there was a building, and it was called the Grand Street Building, and it was in Hoboken, New Jersey. And it was purchased by a co-op of artists. And they banded together, they formed an LLC, and they banded together to buy it and turn it into high-end luxury condos. And then it turned out that the building was a Superfund site. It had been there, it had been a mercury vapor company warehouse, and somewhere along its title search been missed. So it became a huge Superfund case. And I represented an environmental consultant on the case and sat in on months of depositions. And it was fascinating to me that these people who had loved each other, who had been friends and family and had bonded together to do this, turned on each other. And I was really fascinated. So that was the genesis of the idea. Then I took it in another direction, right? Because it's definitely a little bit of a haunted building. It's got a haunted past. And so I took that little germ there, little seed, and then I kind of pulled it apart into the story that is Easy Street.
Well, it's interesting because a couple of years ago, I read a book by Anne Leary about a real life sanitarium in suburban Massachusetts, outside of Boston, that women actually were committed to
Yeah.
for things like postpartum depression.
So
By their husbands or communities who just wanted to get rid of them. Like if the husband, maybe wanted to remarry or something. And I was shocked because I did not, it turns out this is a true thing. So when I heard about Anne Leary's book, I was like, that can't be true. Oh my God, it's true.
Yeah.
And so it was so fascinating to see this historical fact also pop up in your book, but I had no idea this was based on a case that you worked on. Oh my God, Amy, that's crazy. Because I think, but how many of us have fantasized about buying an old building or an old apartment and rehabbing it? And, I watch all these videos on Instagram. They're so addictive, like before and after. I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. I wish I had that gift. So it was such a fun plot idea.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've thought about that concept all these years since I worked on that case, and like I said, that was many moons ago. But the Agnes character, she is based in part on my own grandmother, and my grandmother and I were very close when I was growing up, and she died quite young. And when she died, she left me a folder of her writings. She was a writer, and she was, she used to publish letters to the editor. She was always working on different things, stories, manuscripts. But she left me a folder of her writings, and in there were essays about her husband had put her in a hospital. She had electric shock therapy. She
Oh my
remembered
God.
it. Like she remembered the details, and she wrote the details, and she left that to me. So this is a way of honoring her story and her tragedy. I mean, she was never the same afterwards, from my understanding. I didn't know her beforehand, but it was a struggle for her for the rest of her life, what she had been through. And I also, like you, was shocked to know that this was a thing, and have done a lot of research about the sanitariums at the time, and have become really horrified by the way we treated women.
Yes.
That generation. Yeah.
Amy, how old were you when your grandmother died and you were
I
left with
was
it?
25.
So that is a sort of life-changing moment
Yeah,
for a young woman to
yeah,
get the truth of this
yeah.
from.
I had
Wow.
always known kind of just like whispers about it. It had always been whispered about. And I didn't really know, I didn't talk to her about it. I only knew about it just sort of like in general, but reading her accounts was really, really, really poignant.
And since that time, has that story sat in your heart waiting to come out in some form?
Yeah, my grandmother has definitely influenced a lot of my writing. My second novel, Secrets of Rory Dolls, I dedicated to her posthumously. There's a character in there, Mari, that just is, inspired. There's just been a lot of characters that have been inspired by my grandmother. I know she would have loved to know that I'm a writer now. That would have been so interesting and wonderful for her. But she was working on another thing that was in her folder where she had taken like a how to write your memoir class, and she was taking notes. I mean, it wasn't far along at all, but I've always had this idea that like I am tasked with writing her story, not in memoir form. I would never suppose to try to do that. But she shows up in a lot of my stories. But Agnes is the most biographical sketch of my grandmother for sure. She was
Oh
not on
my
trial
God.
for killing. She was never on trial for killing anyone.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I think it just, as someone I was so close to my grandmother and I loved her so much. And so this is just extra meaningful. Oh my goodness. Um, yeah. Okay. So you guys, the book is out now and you can order it tonight from our favorite woman-owned, feels extra poignant tonight, woman-owned bookstore. That is, of course, Murder by the Book. So whether you're watching with us on Facebook or on YouTube, here is that link to click and order your copy of Easy Street. Now we had a question submitted in advance. Oh, you know what? I want from Amanda. I'm going to get to that in a second, but I want to get to this one for Renee saying your grandmother must have loved you very much, and also in order to leave you her personal information. I'm sure your grandmother knows or knew that you would become a wonderful writer, right? Because she didn't leave it to her children; she left it to you.
Right,
She sensed in you a fellow writer.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And Renee would like to know, do you prefer being a writer or being a lawyer?
You know, I I couldn't do what I'm doing now if I hadn't had that sort of time of my life. That sort of I always wanted to be a lawyer. I never wanted to be anything else professionally but a lawyer. And then I loved being a lawyer until I didn't anymore. And then I knew it was time for a new chapter. So I have no regrets about that time. I always say I didn't leave the law behind. I definitely brought it forward. But when you're a lawyer, your whole profession is to, quelch your own voice, squash your own voice, and write in the voice of your clients. Try to predict the voice the judge wants to hear. I was a litigator, and you really kind of lose something of yourself if you truly have a creative spirit. I think law actually attracts very creative people, and then does not often give them an outlet to express that creativity. So I feel so grateful now to have this path to be creative. It feels like where I'm supposed to be now. But I do recognize that it's not really a path I could have embarked on. I didn't really have any stories to tell straight out of high school or straight out of college.
Mm,
I definitely have a lot of I've 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 been on a path where a lot of stories have come to me.
right. Well, here we can see a juicy one with this story of six friends buying a money pit. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
horribly wrong.
yeah.
So we can see that we can see. I look forward to what other past Amy cases start to come out. John is joining us from Northeast Ohio on Facebook. Hi, John. So good to have you with us. Okay, so Amanda says she read the first River's Edge book, hasn't had a chance to read the second one yet. Can she jump right into book 3?
Yes, yes. I've been very excited about that. The books technically are standalone books. There are certainly references to the trial. Each one is its own trial and its own set of characters, but the characters of one book handed off to the next book. So Kirkus gave it a wonderful review and said it can act as a standalone book and people can enter the club through Easy Street very easily, which I loved. So yeah, you can just jump right into Easy Street. There will be no spoilers for the earlier 2 books, and there may be some references to the cases, the characters, but you can read them in any order.
Ooh, good. Thank you for that. And Amanda, thanks for submitting that question via Instagram. Good to have that question. How long ago did you finish this book, Renee? I would like to know. Good question.
Yeah, this book was. I probably wrote this book the fastest of the 3 books.
Oh,
So I actually wrote this book in less than a year, which the rest of them have taken a year or so to write. But this one I wrote in about 6 months.
oh my
So
God.
I know, I know. So yeah, so this one was finished earlier this year.
Amy Impellizzeri, comma, Speed Demon.
Yeah,
Um, Speedy,
I did not know if I had it in
Speedy.
me, frankly, but I did.
Oh my God, amazing. Yes. Um, Again, you guys, the book is out now. Book 3 in the Rivers. Renee is saying that is so quick. Yes, that is like
It
so
is
quick.
quick.
And maybe because you had been subconsciously, marinated
Yeah,
on this in some way since you worked on the case
I
in your
had
law career.
outlined it. Yeah, I had
Oh,
originally when I first pitched the series, there are 4, there's a 4th book outlined as well. So, hopefully that's gonna be out within the next year. But I originally outlined 4 books. So there were always going to be 4 books in the series, more if it's, more if it's well received and there are more ideas. So it was outlined early on in the process, and then we went back and forth about the first and second book and which one should be the lead off, and eventually we settled on, I think, the right answer, which is In Her Defense should be the lead off book. And then I was really focused on those books, and then when it was time to turn to Easy Street, um, the deadline was fast approaching. So yeah, I had to really kind of put the pedal to the metal for that one.
pedals to the metal. And so that's so interesting because I feel like so often books are series are in 3, it's sort of like
Yeah,
1, 2, 3. And this is the first time I've heard of of someone planning out actually 4 books.
yeah,
But open to potentially case Scarpetta 36. I mean,
yeah. Because this is not a series where I had to where it's like one case or one storyline that's kind of going through all the, and I had to kind of foresee the ending. It's not like that. The hub of this series is the town, the law club, and then each story is its own set of characters, and each one has its own unlikely female protagonist knocking on the door of the club. So it allows a lot more freedom and flexibility for expanding the series.
yay. Well,
Yeah.
here is book 3 in the River's Edge series. Again, available from our favorite woman owned independent bookstore. That is Murder by the Book. So, whether you're watching with us on Facebook or on YouTube, here is that link so that you too can click and immerse yourself in the world of these 6 friends. My favorite character, Sara. Amy's favorite character, Ava. Actually, is Ava your favorite, or am I just thinking that you two are the same character? I didn't mean to
Yeah,
put words in your mouth.
I don't have a favorite. I mean, probably if I had to say my favorite character, it'd probably be Agnes.
Agnes. And
And
why is
she
she your
is not a
favorite?
point of view character in the story, but still.
Why is she your favorite?
Well, she's just so personal. I mean, she's just so
Mm,
personal. And yeah, and I think she has a really, I mean, I think I really enjoyed her storyline. I think she's got a really fun storyline here.
I love that. Let's talk about that Kirkus review that you mentioned. That is such a strong review. Congratulations on
Thank
that.
you.
And they at the end, Kirkus always gives it that sort of one line summary. I'm going to pop it up so we can all read it together. But they say membership in the law club should get a boost from this well told, character driven story. So again, focusing on this one through those 6 characters, but then also Agnes. Oh, Renee wants to know, do you think 6 characters work best for you? Yeah, let's talk about, do you think that 6 characters work best for you? And let's talk about that character driven character creation process for you to create those.
Yeah, it was really complicated. It was
Let's
definitely my
talk
most
about that.
ambitious, but
Yeah.
they didn't all have a point of view. So it's only 4 point of view characters. But the other characters are definitely present in the story. So when I was choosing, um obviously I had to sort of make sure everybody had their own voice. Each point of view character had their own voice, but the characters that didn't necessarily have a point of view, but certainly were instrumental in the plot. I had to make sure that that the reader could sort of keep track of all of them. So that's why I think this was a heavily outlined book, and that's probably why the writing process went more more quickly and more smoothly than perhaps others, because it did require a lot of work up front to just
Yeah.
really map everyone out and make sure everyone was their backstories were very well honed, and their motives were very well honed, their secrets were very well honed, where they were going to get placed. So I did a lot of work for this book up front. Yeah. But I think it is my most ambitious in terms of the 4 points of view. I don't know that I'll
Yeah.
do that again anytime soon.
Yeah.
I
I
would
had four, I had
alter
4 points of view, and I felt like it made my life 4 times harder. I was like, why did I do this? This is it really, because I had also read that you should be able to cover the names of the characters,
yes.
and have your reader still know whose worldview they're in just by their language, their pacing, their,
Yeah.
their narrative arc, their emotions and everything. I was like, oh my God. Because at first they all sounded an awful lot like me.
Of course.
So,
Of course.
yeah. But I think it's definitely working. Another line from Kirk is saying this third installment in Impellizzeri's River's Edge Law Club series is a standalone narrative that eschews courtroom drama for a compelling story of secrets and lies. And I think that's the nucleus of what, is sort of universally relatable. We all have, secrets and lies, and the need to get the desire to learn what those are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a story about being seen and heard in all
Mm.
different aspects of your life, professionally, personally. We have a lot of characters here who are struggling to truly be seen. And so that was a really big theme that ran through the story.
So speaking of this outline, how long was that outline? We're all wondering. I love that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think by the time the outline was all said and done, it was probably like a pretty solid, you know, I don't know, probably like 10 to 15 page outline. But then the biggest part of it is the storyboard. Then when I make the storyboard and really try to have, like, I really try to have a post-it for each chapter. That's sort of like I sort of kind of sketch out. It does not, like I said, I'm not a slave to it. It can change, but that way I can sort of like pull a post-it and be like, okay, this is the chapter I'm going to work on, today, this week, whatever. So the storyboard becomes the biggest part of my outline process.
Wait, a little tiny post-it or one of those giant post-its?
Yeah, I do like a big like literally
Me
a big
too.
poster board.
Me
And then
too.
do you do it too? Yeah, and then I divide it up, and then I have my post-its, yeah.
Yeah, so by the end of mine, it was looking a beautiful mind in here. Like I
Yes.
quickly ran out of wall space in my tiny office, and then my very understanding husband let me take over the living room, and I was like, "Forget wallpaper. We're going to use giant post-its. Like this is our new wallpaper."
Right. Yes. There's something very therapeutic about it. And it like feels good to like look up at it and see that you're making progress on those days when you're like, do I even know how to write a book anymore? But then you're like, well, no, look at how much I've worked
Well,
on this.
when you are telling a story through 4 people talking, but 6 points of view plus Agnes,
Yeah.
like 6 friends plus Agnes,
Yeah.
so 7, but only 4 people have a voice. And then you've also got, Agnes,
Yeah.
different
Very
timelines.
much.
And then 3 of them are couples. And then you have the couples looking at each other. So there's that is a
Yeah.
lot to manage. You got to get that out.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be quite complicated, as you know. And then, your point of view characters have secrets, your characters off the page have secrets. You're trying to you know, basically drop the hints, drop the breadcrumbs in a way that makes the ending earned, And so it's not for the faint of heart.
It is not for the faint of heart. Oh my goodness. Well, again, y'all, the book is out now and available for order via our favorite woman-owned independent store. So once again, here is that link to click and get your copy of Easy Street Book 3 in the Rivers Edge Law Club series out now. Amy Impellizzeri, thank you so much for coming on to give us the inside
Thanks so much.
scoop. Congratulations. We look forward to book 4. And thank you so much for coming on to give us the good scoop. And everybody, thank you for joining us. Thank you for everyone who has questions and everyone who's a shy watcher. Thank you, Irma. Thank you, Robin. Hey, Robin. Thank you, Keba. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Jerome, John, Terry, Sybil, Kate, Kathy, Leslie, trying to get everybody, Becky. Thank you all. If I missed you, if you're in a private Facebook group, I can't see you, but everyone in that group can see you. Thank you so much for spending your Mystery Monday with us. And we will be off next week for Thanksgiving. And I will see you in 2 weeks. May the days and the pages fly by. Take very good care until then.
Thank you.